think that's what it is. Oh yeah, that one's better. Or should I take this thing off? All right. Let's get everything ready here. Presenter view. Okay. Oh, you know what? I don't even have it on the countdown. Or maybe I do. Yeah, I do. Okay. Sip my tea before I gotta go talking a lot. Okay, here. All right, live chat is going. Microphone says it's good, but it's not up in my face. Or if it is, you can't see it from the camera. You can't see it from the camera. All right. All right, got about a minute. Oh, and it reset it. Well, we're not gonna reset today. Okay, let's get into it for today. Here we go. What just happened? There we go. That was weird. Okay. Here we go. Hi everyone. For those who don't know me, I am C. Tyga, CEO of the REI Ledger and author of the book Your Money Sign, second edition, coming summer 2026. Gotta check it out. Thank you for joining me today, whether you're watching us live on YouTube or listening in on the podcast. Welcome. I host these lives every weekday morning starting at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll give about a 20-minute presentation, and then at the end, I do Q&A. So do me a favor, drop your questions early. If I can't get to your question live, you can always join me afterwards in our Facebook group. Before we dive into this episode, a quick heads up. I am sharing my perspective as a financial analyst. I am doing this for educational purposes. What you're about to hear is not legal or financial advice. The strategies that I discuss today are for motivational purposes only. This is not formal legal or financial advice. For that, please consult with your specific CPA or attorney. Real estate is awesome because every portfolio is unique. So always consult with your personal tax or legal pro. We're here to talk shop and strategy. So let's get into today's episode. Who are we and why am I wearing such awesome swag? We are the REI Ledger. We are a remote bookkeeping firm and financial analyst for real estate investors. LTR, STR, BRR, REIT. If you understood what I just said, then you're our people. Our mission is to close the gap of miscommunication within our industry. Hint, when you see equity, it is not what your bookkeeper means when they say equity. We work exclusively in QuickBooks Online. They do not sponsor today's video. That's just the platform that we prefer to use. So to start off our mission today, let me formally introduce myself. I am CEO, and that awesome woman on the screen is my co-founder and CFO, Miss Tara Rhea. She's pretty awesome. We're both CDL Class A professional drivers with our tanker, hazmat, and doubles. What does that mean to you? Well, it means we know how to handle complicated numbers. It also means that we understand the vital importance of tracking those numbers, the paperwork, and having accurate calculations. We both love trucking, but after a work accident has left me unable to truck, we launched a business combining our two passions, numbers and real estate investing. Thus, the REI Ledger was born on October 31st, 2025. Today, we're discussing long-term holds. I created a very quick fix and flip, go, no go kind of thing. And there was a lot of positive feedback about it. A lot of people were like, hey, you should do more of those and cover more topics. So that's what we're doing today. Let's jump on over to it. Or not. There we go. Oh, how do I zoom in on here? We're gonna zoomy zoom, maybe. Thought I would be more zoomy, but apparently not. Okay. Single family home, long-term holds. There's a top and a bottom. There we go. I think that's how I can fit in the most of it. So I'm just gonna, I think there's 5 rules. Doing only 2 or 3, while it might be cool for social media, it's difficult for actually running the numbers. Having like, 15 to 20 different KPIs that you're trying to look over for a quick go, no-go situation, I think is way too much. And I've seen way too many investors. I mean, with 5 simple questions, you should be able to get rid of the quick no's. And that's all you're trying to do with this. So this is not a comprehensive, again, this is not legal or financial advice. Oh, you know what? I just realized we have a typo. There we go. Oh, there. There. Not that one. That one. Download. There we go. Now I got a copy of the corrected stuff on my computer. Okay. So, how to begin? As a real estate investor, it is important to understand that every deal you look at, unless you are completely privately funded or you have your own capital liquidity, which you might for 1, maybe 2 deals, and then usually your liquidity's gone and you're needing to go ask somebody else. And what they're going to do is they're going to see for their self if it looks like a good deal. And we call that underwriting. So in institutional underwriting, we don't start with floor plans or pictures or anything like that. We're going to start with a very quick go, no go filter. So today I'm breaking down the REI Ledger's 60-second analysis for single family home long-term rentals. This isn't just like a checklist, okay? It's more of a capital preservation strategy. If you can keep capital in the deal, you can make the deal work. But once capital is gone, you can't make it work. Like, it's just not there. So we're going to look at 5 critical KPIs, which are key performance indicators, or in this, I call them rules, that determine if a property deserves a deeper dive or move on. So let's go over the first one, the rule. The rent to cost ratio. So what is the rule? is the monthly gross rent at least 0.8% to 1% of the total purchase price? How do you calculate that? We're going to divide the projected monthly rent by the total acquisition cost. What does that mean? It's the purchase price with any immediate repairs. Stuff you have to do before you can get a tenant in there. So if a property costs $200,000, you're looking for $1,600 to $2,000 in monthly rent. If you're asking yourself, we're becoming a renter's nation, and if I get a lot of times, why is rent so high? It's just because people are greedy. Well, if you mean having positive cash flow, then yes, they're greedy. They're not going to pay for you to live in their building. That is the greedy part. That is the rule. Now, if you're in a place that is charging more than 1% of the total purchase price, well, that's somebody who believes they can get a higher margin and you're paying it, so you've just proven them right. Well, that's another topic. Okay, why? Why is this your primary yield indicator? At 0.8 to 1%, the asset will typically generate enough strong yield, enough profit to cover the big three. Your mortgages, one or two, depending on if you've done a bridge loan, your taxes, and your insurance. Those are going to go right there. What's the risk of ignoring it? Well, if you fall below that threshold, you have a very serious risk of negative cash flow. You are now paying somebody to live in your property. And if that's what you want to do, trust me, there'll be an endless line of people who will more than happy to let you pay for them to stay in a place. But then you aren't buying an asset. You're buying a monthly liability that's gonna drain your liquidity. Too many long-term, remember we're talking long-term IRS-wise is over the year. Long-term in real estate can be anywhere from a 4 to 7 year hold, so you get a higher IRR. Or it can be a, hey, this is my retirement plan. I plan on holding it forever, hopefully in a title, putting the title in like a trust or something so that you can pass it on to somebody after you've passed away. So when we're talking long-term, you need to define for yourself what is long-term. Because like I just said, it could be a year and a half. It could be 70 years. What is long-term to you? And you'll need to understand that areas will change within time. They always do. I mean, think about it. Wherever you're living right now, look it up and see how the city was laid out, what the population was like, what the school districts were ranked 70 years ago. See what was going on in the 40s and 50s in your area. And now look at it today. That's the kind of thinking I need you to understand. Changes will happen, and they'll only happen quicker and quicker as we do technology, as we bring in AI models to say, hey, this would be a great development place. And like, oh, okay, cool. Instead of taking 20 years of slowly moving it along, an AI can literally just say, hey, these are your flood area. We've done a quick scan of the land. These are going to be your flood areas. These are going to be your best places to put roads. These are going to be your best places to put subways. Things are only going to move faster in the next 70 years. So it is incredibly important that wherever you're at, the numbers really support you getting a rent that will allow you to cover your debt. If nothing else, and all you do is quote unquote survive the rent, survive the mortgage, you'll at least be able to have appreciation and move forward with it. That was a lot for rule number one, huh? But think about it. Is the property making you money? Well, rule number one, is it likely to make you money? And if the answer is no, why give it another second? With that one question, you should be able to say, not worth my time, or maybe a little bit more look. So let's just say you go in there and you think, wow, what's currently being rented? Yeah, I could get 1% of the total purchase price. Okay, cool. Well, let's go to rule number 2. Let's look at the macroeconomic growth floor. That's a lot of words. Just meaning, has the local population and the job market grown by 1% or more annually over the last 3 years? How do you do this? So you would pull municipal data or census reports, and you would look for consistent multi-year upward trends in both headcount and employment. Employment is huge. Um, Growth creates high demand. So from an analyst perspective, this ensures low vacancy risk and drives consistent long-term appreciation. If there's good jobs in an area, people are going to stay. Another thing in the macroeconomic growth floor that I think a lot of investors overlook when they're trying to do long-term hold, they overlook the importance of looking at building permits. You're like, well, I'm not into new construction, so why do I care about permits? Well, you should, because if you're buying a property for a long-term hold, remember, we're all doing this long-term, and you're in, say, the north part of the state, or the part of the city, but you look up where all the new building permits for the next 1 to 3 years are being pulled from, and you're noticing a huge amount of permits are on the southeast side of the city. Now you're realizing you're not in the path of progress. So while it might be an okay or a great spot right now, there is a risk that with the newer builds and the newer shiny stuff, especially if there's newer builds for jobs, people are going to want to be close to the job. As a trucker, I know what it's like to drive for 16 hours a day, and most people don't have that kind of patience. I'm aware of this. So I want you to not only take a look at local population and at job growth, but I also want you to look at permits. That's going to tell you a lot about the long-term effects on the city. Now, what's the risk of ignoring all this? Well, I mean, you could ignore it. You could say, oh, well, I just inherited it, so I'm going to stick with it. That's how a lot of people become a long-term hold investor before realizing it. And that's absolutely up to you. But in my opinion, in the statistical opinion, you could end up with a very stagnant market. What does that mean? Without a growing population, you face the risk of declining property values and long vacancies as the tenant pool shrinks. It's just when there's less people looking to rent, it's going to be more and more difficult for you to find those renters. So the first one is really, does this property make money? Which is important. And the rule number 2 is there going to be a demand for this property? It's supply and demand, basically. Is it supplying you with a profit, and is there a demand for it? So rule number 3, are the HVAC, roof, and water heater all under 10 years old or in good condition? I am trying to find positive words to say this. I am shocked by the number of investors who do not verify these things. What do I mean by that? You've got a wholesaler, and they'll call up and they'll ask the seller, hey seller, how old is your roof? Oh, I put it up like 4 years ago. Okay, cool. They put it under contract. They now go and they create a very compelling story to an investor. An investor says, oh, okay, that's cool. And they take the deal. And then they get in there and nobody verified it. So what do I suggest that you do? Verify. Verify the age of the mechanical systems during the initial walkthrough or via the property disclosure. Another popular thing to do is to ask for pictures or PDF proof of, receipts, when the roof was done, when the HVAC was done. Why? Predictable maintenance. you're looking, especially for a long-term hold, you are looking for an asset. You're not looking for a headache. So you want predictable maintenance. By ensuring these systems are in their first decade of life, you get to protect your early year cash flow from being wiped out by structural failures. A lot of times, especially in the early years, you're going to have a very, very slim profit margin. And so, what is the risk of ignoring it? Well, if you have a lot of heavy upfront costs, large, what we call CapEx, which is capital expenditures, such as the roof, such as the HVAC, such as the water heater, if you have those events in years 1 to 3, it can turn what looks like a high performing asset in the pro forma into an actual net loss, like for the whole decade that you hold it. So you want to be, in my opinion, you want to be very aware when you're getting into it. Rule number 4, I cannot overstate this enough. I've heard this too many times. Well, I don't rent to families. Oh, this is a college town. Well, college is a school district. It's a retirement community. Okay, well, grandma wants to go see the kids play soccer or do their local swim meet. So, what is the rule? Is the property located in a school district rated 5 out of 10 or higher? Higher. How would you check this? Well, there are third-party school rating platforms that will verify the district's standing. So figure out your city and just put in school ratings, and that's going to tell you a lot. Why? Well, institutional data that shows quality schools will attract long-term tenants. Families stay. They don't want to move their children, especially young children, which results in significantly lower turnover rates. This has to be said that you also got to be aware of what other sort of transient population. If you are in a very high military town and you're wanting a long-term hold, just be aware that, obviously the schools will be of great quality. Our military takes care of our kids. But it's also going to be, because of the nature of the job, you're going to have different tenants. So there's always a little bit of nuance to anything. But remember, we're just trying to do a quick filter here. So the rule number 4 for the quick filter is having those quality school districts. I mean, you can't ignore it. What is the risk of ignoring it? Well, it's higher turnover. Very low rated districts will often attract what we call transient tenants. These are tenants, just statistically, that tend to have lower income, lower job security, and they also tend to have lower respect for your property. They're typically going to have more wear and tear, and it's going to drive up your administrative costs having to go to them every single month or every other month saying, rent's late, rent's late. There was a complaint by the neighbor, there was a complaint by the city. And that's just the reality of what happens when you ignore that standard. Rule number 5, it's the liquidity test. Not cash liquidity, but days on market. What do I mean by that? Well, the rule is, are comparable rentals in this neighborhood leasing in under 30 days? So our property's not staying on the market. People want to move. People need to get in there. How do you execute this? Well, just check your DOM. Check your days on the market for rental listings on local MLS or rental platforms. Like, you can call up a real estate agent and say, hey, I want to list my property in Dallas, Texas, and what are the average days on market in your market right now? And they'll tell you. They'll have that number. Why? Well, like I said, it's about market liquidity. A high liquidity rental market will minimize your vacancy periods between tenants. This is going to help you keep your cash flow uninterrupted. If you have a tenant who says, hey, I got a better job offer in another city, I need to move out, even if they leave your property in pristine condition, which usually you have to do something, paint, carpet, drapes, something, which means you have to pay for maintenance, which means you have to pay for supplies, which means you have to put time into it. And then you have to find a new tenant. Once you find a new tenant, you still have to pre-qualify that new tenant, which means more time, more money, and then the tenant has to be able to get into your place. If there's high liquidity, that means you're going to be doing that before your next mortgage payment is due. So what's the problem if you ignore it? Well, I mean, in what we call a low liquidity or a highly saturated market, this is where properties sit for like 60, 90 days or longer. You will be forced to lower your rent just to find a tenant, which will compromise your initial pro forma, your initial understanding of how much money you're going to make in this deal. So, as a real estate investor, I'm hoping that your goal is to remove the emotion and you focus on the math. If a property fails even one of these 5 rules, you have a very compelling data-backed reason to proceed. What? Oh, we will do that again. As real estate investors, your goal is to remove emotion and focus on the math. If a property fails even one of these 5 rules, I need you to make sure that you have a compelling data-backed reason to proceed. Because if you don't, you should stop. You're gonna lose money on this property. And if you're setting it up in a way that you're gonna lose money, you're also gonna have a very hard time finding investors to come into it, because you're not the only one running the numbers. Other people are going to come in and run the numbers too. And you might say, oh, well, it's a terrible school district right now, but back in my grandma's day, it was a great school district, and I loved coming here with my grandma, and I have all these happy memories with my grandma. And then outside investor will say, well, I appreciate that you've got great memories, but you have terrible numbers. I'm not doing this. What is the advantage of having a checklist like this? Well, it's an interactive PDF, and you will be able to come in and just click on it and type in the address. Then you're going to be able to very quickly go through and hit yes or no. And if that's a no, you already know. Let's not proceed. Let's go find a new address. Down here at the bottom, you're going to have a little reset button. You can push it. It'll delete everything. Once you have it completely filled out, you can save the PDF and rename it on your phone or your iPad or your tablet, whatever you're working with, and then you can do with the next deal. This is the intention for this is to make sure that you can very, very quickly figure out which deals deserve more of your time and which deals don't. There is no point, unless you're very, very new and you're just trying to figure out how this goes. Sorry, buddy. Hold on a sec. Excuse me. But I want you to know that if you're just starting out, having little checklists like this that are backed by data, these 5 questions are going to tell you if a deal is good a lot better than the advice out there that I see on social media of, oh, is there tall grass? Okay, that might be a visual cue, but who cares if there's tall grass if you can't even get 1% of the rent? Who cares if it's only cosmetic fixes if the job market is actually declining over the last 3 years? There are diamonds in the rough, and then there are cause and effect. A newbie investor, in my experience, will be looking at it from the ground up. What do I see when I'm looking through Google Maps and I'm moving the picture around? What do I see? A sophisticated investor, and that's just the word they use, I didn't come up with it. A sophisticated investor is going to look at it from the finances down. If you find a property where you know local rent would actually be, say, 1.2% of the purchase price, and the job market has gone up over the last 3 years, plus the building permits tell you that a really big manufacturing job company is going to come in and build a new warehouse, and you know from the walkthrough that all of your HVAC and your roof and your water heater, all of your current upfront costs are going to be really low. And the property is located in a great school district, and that the rentals are, on there for like 28 days. It's just under the 30-day limit. Who cares if it has short grass or long grass? And there are plenty of times where a property can look great on the ground and the numbers are shite. But there's another time where the property itself just blends in. Let's be honest, just blends in. People keep the grass cut because they don't want to get a fee from the city. And they'll put in little timers that make it look like people are there, and they'll stop their mail so it doesn't pile up. The rules that applied in the 70s, 80s, 90s, those, for the most part, don't fully apply anymore. This is about the age of information, and the quality of information that you obtain is only going to help you with your better results. And I know I'm fully biased. As a financial analyst, I am definitely biased that the numbers are going to be your best friend. Having the visuals, that's for getting rid of the property or renting out to the property or finding a rent to own tenant. That's for the selling part of the property. And I am talking about the acquisition part of the property. When you are coming in as an investor, you can't look at it like a tenant. That's just not going to help you. You need to look at the numbers, because that's what every other person involved in the deal is going to look at. What are the numbers? And not just the numbers for the house, the numbers for the city as a whole, the numbers for the neighborhood, the numbers for the school. It feels like a lot of data, but as you saw, it's 5 questions. It's 5 questions. And if you have a yes to all 5 of these questions, when you present it to a bank, to a private lender, to a JV partner, you're going to have a much higher probability of that other person going, oh, that's good, that's good, that's good. Yeah, yeah, let's proceed with it. You're going to have a much higher probability. I see too many deals that start from the bottom of the hill and try to push a boulder up, as opposed to, well, let's just walk up to the top of the hill and see what boulders are already up there. If that makes sense. I don't know why that popped into my head. But anyway, I went a little over my 20 minutes, but I think especially with a single family long-term hold, it was important to go over the details. It was very important to make sure that we are knowing what we're talking about. All right, here. I would like to thank you for your time today. Thank you for joining me for live number 15. I have a few questions to answer, and if I don't get to your questions, please join us in the Facebook community afterwards. I do check it every morning after I do my lives, and I do my best to respond very quickly. All right, so it's 6:02, so we have a few questions to answer. What are some mysteries that you've had to solve when it comes to a deal? There are a lot of numbers involved, and most people have a difference of opinion of what each number means. How do you shorten the distance between reality and what an investor wants to hear? Ooh, that's a good question. As a financial analyst, how do I shorten the reality from what the investor wants to hear to what's actually going on? For someone like me, numbers are numbers. If numbers fall within a provable range, then go. If numbers fall outside of approval range, then no go. That can be very static, that can be very old school, and for people who do creative financing, they think that mentality doesn't work. But here's the thing. Real estate isn't just numbers, it's psychology. And the same reality can apply. Somebody who has the psychology of my property is the best property ever because of X, Y, and Z, and I'm not going to let it go without a fight no matter what the offer is, that is a go, no go situation. You go toward their ego instead of toward their numbers, but you always go toward their ego in a way that reaches your numbers. So when an investor is hearing numbers that they don't like, that they didn't want to hear, there's always an emotion behind it. So as a financial analyst, I kind of have to be a uncertified psychologist at the same time, because it's kind of what I was saying yesterday, where you have input, you're the filter, then you have output. So when I'm telling you your numbers, hey, you can't get 1% of your rent. You can barely get 0.75 of your rent. And they come back and be like, oh, but it's so close. And I read this article that so-and-so is going to come into town. And I'm like, okay, where's their building permit? Well, what do you mean? A newspaper or a social media, or even, the company said they're interested in this town. Okay, but what's boots on the ground? What can be proven? Because companies, sometimes they announce the potential for building a new factory, the potential for expanding, and they never do it. Either it was from the very beginning a ploy to up the stock price, to up the perception of whatever it was, because they're about to merge or whatever, or they had the intention, but it couldn't actually work out. They didn't have the capital, or they didn't get approval from the city, whatever. There's a lot of things that happen between an announcement of progress and actual progress. That is why I say pull the permits. So how do I want to say solve the mystery? It's not that people don't see the data. The mystery is when people's emotions, input, their filter keeps them from seeing the full story. As a financial analyst, I have to be able to look at raw data and know an accurate story. Anyone can make up any story from any piece of data, whether it's 1 or 2 bits to thousands of KPIs. As a financial analyst, my value is to be able to interpret what the likely outcome is, what the likely story will be, because an investor is telling themselves a story. So I have to go in there, present the data, and see what story they're getting from the data. And a lot of times, if they're ignoring the data, that tells me they've created a story not based on data. And then I have to kind of backtrack a little bit and get to know their story. I have to know, what are they telling themselves? So like I said, it's kind of having to be an uncertified psychologist. That's the mystery. The mystery really is, what is the investor telling themselves about this property? Because the numbers are numbers. They can be misinterpreted, they can lie, and they can be accurately interpreted, they can predict. So it's really about interpretation. That was a good question. What is your favorite time of year to purchase a property? Ooh, well, it's going to have to be market specific. Some markets, let's just say a heavy touristy town. Let's say it's a beach property. And it's actually very popular in the wintertime, not the summertime. Why would that be? Because it's warm and people go there for the winter season, the winter break. That's what the numbers have shown for the last 3 years. My suggestion would be to purchase it at the very beginning of the peak season, because you want to come into an investment where you're going to have the greatest potential for cash flow. So what is my favorite season? My favorite season is when money is flowing. That is my favorite season. Per property, you need to see when the money is flowing in, because it's a lot easier to make capital expenditures during the slow season if you've already built up some profit, if you've already built up a buffer for it. And when you're first taking over a property, you need to project out the length of your hold. I know for a lot of, in my experience, in my opinion, not legal advice, not financial advice, a 4 to 7 year hold usually has the highest IRR, internal rate of return. What does that mean? It basically just means a lot of people will hold a property for 4 to 7 years, period. So if you know you're one of those people, you got to hope for the 4 year, but you have to plan for the 7 year. And that means from day one, you've got to know what you need to do in the first 3 months, the first 6 months, the first year. That's going to get you to a quality product by year 4 to sell it. But if you have to hold it for 3 more years, you are still being able to give a return to your investors. So everything for a financial analyst comes down to, when is cash flowing? That is the best time to buy, and that is the best time to sell. Think about it. If you have a property that is seasonal, do you want to try to sell it when your numbers are low or when your numbers are high? Of course you want to try to sell it when your numbers are high. So I think buying or selling, it needs to be when there is peak profitability. But that is also why you have to build into there knowing that there will be times where there's not profit flowing. In a long-term rental, maybe that's people have moved out. Maybe that's, especially if you're in like a flood zone or something and a flood comes through, once in 50 years, can you hold that property down for 5 months, 6 months while everything's getting repaired? You need to hope for the best, but plan for the worst. If you plan for the worst case scenario and know you can survive the worst case scenario, then you're good, because no matter what happens, you're either going to survive or you're going to profit. And that's kind of what you want to do as a real estate investor. Let me take a drink here. Are you a member of a group or a real estate organization? And if so, which one? Well, that can be a very broad question and a very tight question. But from a investing point of view, I think I'm like most people, bigger pockets. Bigger Pockets is a great place. I've written some articles on the personal blog. You have to remember, in Bigger Pockets, there's the Bigger Pockets blog, and then each individual member can write a blog. So I've written some small blogs. I haven't done a Bigger Pockets blog yet. That would be cool to do in the future. But I think, as far as am I part of a group or an organization, yes, it can be big or small. I have a small group that I'm part of. It's about 4 or 5 of us ladies who go to the gym every morning, and we do workouts in the water that helps with taking pressure off of my spine and trying to move so that I can attempt to walk through most of the day. And that's a great group. It just helps me on a personal level. But then there's also something as big as Bigger Pockets. Um, I'm thinking that question was more about, do I recommend any groups or organizations? And the answer is yes. Absolutely 100% yes. But go there with a mindset to serve. Have value. If it is a real estate focused group, go there with some value. Read some books, study some equations. If it's a local real estate group, let's say it's a Phoenix, Arizona real estate group, well, maybe the night before or even 10 minutes before, ask ChatGPT, I'm going to this real estate meeting for Phoenix, Arizona. Can you please tell me what the current growth rates are, or the current days of market are, just some of the KPIs? And then read through it genuinely for yourself. And then when you're there, you don't say it to brag or blah, blah, blah. You say it to provide value. I have seen it firsthand that a lot of people go to a real estate meeting specifically to try to get more clients, try to get funding, trying to get. And in my experience, the people who give are the people who are going to quickly make the deals. I have, for many years now, gone to different real estate meetups and groups and seminars and teachings and such. And I've noticed a trend. There is the big group, as I call it. Lots of talking, lots of exchanging cards, lots of telling war stories about how they're so proper and big or whatever. But then there's always a small group. They're usually the ones in the gym at 5 a.m. And they're there, they're present, they're listening, and they're usually the ones not talking unless they're actually talking about a deal, like doing a deal. Not just talking about a past deal or a potential deal. Like they are literally making moves while everybody else is just making motion. And those are the people, in my observation, that are going to be sitting there listening to somebody, and then they go, oh, yeah, have you read this book? Okay, yeah, have you followed this podcast? But they're also the one who, when somebody else says, oh, here's a book, or here's a podcast, or here's a training, they're either taking mental note, or they're writing it into their phone or their notebook, and they're like, oh, okay, cool, thank you. They're giving value, and they're taking value instead of ego. I have met far too many people who think that the purpose of a business meetup, no matter what genre it is for them to basically try to sell you. And I was like, dude, we already know you're in real estate. It's a real estate meeting. So they kind of missed the mark. If you're just starting out, or even if you're a beginner, even something like Bigger Pockets, it's a tool and you have to decide how you're going to use it. I guess that's all I got for that one. How many times have you told someone that their numbers just won't work and had to walk away? Oh, that's a good question. A lot. Numbers are numbers. And as a financial analyst, as a bookkeeper, no matter what the numbers say, you still have to pay for my advice. So I don't necessarily walk away. Have I parted with clients because what they wanted was something I couldn't deliver? Yes. we definitely have. Now, I don't make that decision unilaterally. I always go with my co-founder, Tara, and we talk about it, about where our business is headed and where the client wants to take us. And if those are two different paths, then yes, we let them know we can't move forward with them. That happens a lot, but numbers are numbers. Numbers can be manipulated to tell you a story you want to hear. And unfortunately, some people, some bookkeepers, will try to move numbers around to make their client happy. And I am not of that mindset. I would rather a client be unhappy that a deal is bad than have a client be happy and get into a bad deal, if that makes sense. I think it's very important to have integrity, especially in this business, because I'm in it for the long game. I see myself doing this for probably the rest of my life. Maybe not as actively involved in the next 50 years, but I love numbers, I love people, and I love the truth. Like, to me, the truth is what's going to happen regardless of how I feel, regardless of how someone else feels, what's actually going to happen. And to me, I find that fascinating. So that's who I am. What was your last job? You don't sound like a college student. I went to college for 1 semester. It was not for me. Paying somebody at the end hundreds of thousands of dollars to say, hey, read these textbooks seems stupid. I mean, I'll read the textbooks. You can ask anybody. I love reading. I love learning. But paying somebody to give me a piece of paper that proved that I read the book just did not make any sort of sense to me. What was my last job? I was a trucker, CDL Class A trucker. I had a back injury, and I tried going back into trucking a couple of times, and each time I just couldn't do it. The ironic thing is when you do back-breaking labor, it breaks your back. So I am transitioning into my passion. Both of my parents were self-employed, so I've always had an interest in businesses and an understanding of how small businesses worked. And then probably about 15, 20 years ago, I started getting into real estate. Because I had a slumlord, I came into real estate more as an activist than as an investor, and I had to learn the investing side of it while keeping my activist side. So that's what this has slowly turned into. I've always known that when I retire, I'm going to be a writer, and I've written several books in my lifetime. My first publication, I was in elementary school. I just love to communicate. So that's that, I guess. What is something you dread hearing from a client? Ooh, that's a very good question. But anytime I hear that word, I know I have to go from analyst mode to therapist mode. Well, the numbers don't look good in this section, but if I XYZ, I think maybe I could. When in that context, okay, so that's a bad example of a but. A good example of a but would be, I'm looking for a margin of 0.8, but I got a margin of 0.91. That's a good but. I don't dread that but. I dread the, I know this is a bad deal, but I dread that. And it happens a lot more often than you might realize. As human beings, especially in the modern age, we have an entitlement over nature. we have this entitlement that with our willpower alone, we can make anything happen. And to a great extent, we have made amazingly unnatural things happen. Think about electricity, think about plastic. I mean, where would we be without those two very unnatural things? Think about it. There's no turtles out there or rabbits out there who are making plastic and using electricity. It's very unnatural. So we do have a natural entitlement to be unnatural. Understand that is a flaw in our brains. We are very, very flawed little 2 pound organs floating around in a skull. Okay, that's all we are. We're a little bit of 2 pounds of fat mainly floating around into a skull. That's me, that's you, that's the smartest humans who've ever lived. So I guess what I'm dreading is entitlement. Let's put it that way. When an investor comes to me and feels entitled that a bad deal should somehow become a good deal just because they want it to become a good deal, that's what I would dread. Because you can feel entitlement in somebody else. Yes, the words that they say, but also in the energy that they give, like the tone of voice and the body posture. You can come into, it's kind of a fun social experiment. Go into your next group meeting, whatever the group is, a family gathering, a mall. I don't think people do that anymore, but any sort of gathering, a business gathering especially. Take a notebook, yes, paper and pen notebook, and observe people. Just observe them. Do not go there to give out business cards. Do not go there to get business. Simply go there to build an incredibly valuable life skill. I talk about it from like a positive to a negative. I want to see the people who are really happy to be there, the people who don't care if they're there, and the people who are like, oh my God, get me out of here. Now, don't mistake the positive and negative as if it's a good thing or a bad thing, okay? Good and bad, positive and negative are detached, okay? Please stop that way of thinking. Positive to negative. Somebody who really wants to be there. I might observe them and study them and maybe even engage in conversation. I want to see why they're there. And a lot of times people who are at a business gathering and really want to be there are either A, the host, they're making money, they tell themselves they're making good contacts and that kind of stuff. But a lot of times it's somebody who is getting some level of emotional payback. Like, ooh, yay, people are paying attention to me. Ooh, yay, I feel really, really smart and happy. It is possible for somebody to be making minimum wage and have the knowledge of how to do a good property analysis. It's totally possible. It's also totally possible that they read a book and they talk about a concept or a formula without understanding the real world application to it. That is something I've seen quite often as well. And then you have people who just want to get out of there. And I'm interested. If somebody doesn't want to be there, an adult at a business gathering doesn't want to be there, why are they still there? Why would they drag themselves through? And these are the people who are usually very emotionally loyal. Good thing or bad thing? Once again, take away the good and the bad. Take away those descriptive words, okay? Please. They have good and bad has no place in reality, okay? That's an opinion. That is judgment. We're not there to judge. We're there to observe. So observe. People will have a loyalty to something. Oh, how is it? Oh man, these things suck. I come here every month. Oh, okay. Well, if you don't like them, why are you here? Well, I always come with so and so, and we've known each other for 5 years, so I just come for so and so. Or I've heard this a couple of times where it's, well, I just don't want to be at the house tonight. Wow. So I want you to understand and to start trying to identify entitlement. Entitlement can look positive, entitlement can look negative. I've very rarely seen it look what I call neutral. To me, neutral is curiosity. And I haven't really seen entitlement and curiosity happen at the same time in somebody. Because when you're curious, you're not entitled to an answer. You don't sit there and say, I know all of the answers, when you're literally curiosity is asking, what is the answer? Let me discover the answer. Let me see what's going on. So if I dread entitlement, what do I look forward to? I look forward to curiosity. If somebody can come to me, even if it's their very first deal, and they say right up front, hey, I can't ever afford you. Cool. All right. But what are you curious about? Well, I'm curious about this. I'm curious about that. If someone can come to me with curiosity, I look forward to that. That is something I can work with, because curiosity will open up possibilities. Entitlement shuts off all possibilities. I know this is a bad deal, but I'll make it a good deal by X, Y, Z. That's different than a curiosity of, hey, these numbers seem like a bad deal. Could we make it a good deal with X, Y, and Z? Two completely different approaches on how to do a deal. So that is what I can get through today. If I did not get to your questions, please join us in the Facebook community afterwards. I will check it every day after my lives and answer what I can there. Let's see here, this is live number 15 on a Thursday. I will see you guys tomorrow morning.